Todd Christianson understands despair, including financial despair, and the difficulty of raising his 2-year-old son after his wife lost the battle of cancer. His story is going to touch you, encourage you, and motivate you.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Todd Christianson is an author, podcaster, speaker, accredited financial counselor, certified HUD housing counselor, and education manager at MoneyFit by DRS. Todd has facilitated thousands of personal finance workshops and one-on-one counseling sessions since 2004, helping consumers of all backgrounds, all income levels, regain control of their finances, get out of debt, rebuild their credit, and create a brighter financial future. He published Everyday Money for Everyday People in 2014 and 50 Plus on Fire in 2021. This is something that everybody needs to hear, and I thank you, Todd, for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Thanks, Carol. It is good to be with you. I appreciate it.
All right, let's just jump right in. First of all, with your story, and I'll read what you sent me here as an intro. I maxed out my first card in less than 36 hours and was in credit card debt for nearly a decade before making changes. Now, I'm an award-winning author and creator of personal finance resources. Wow.
Funny how we sometimes end up in a field that in our younger years frustrated us, or at least intrigued us by its what seemed impossible, the impossibilities. But yes, I was not so great with money in my younger years. I grew up in a family who was well off. My dad's was a retired optometrist and youngest of 8 kids. Never lacked. And I learned how to budget through a scouting merit badge, I think it was. And so when I went off to college, this was in the early to mid 80s. It was, my parents didn't know it, but it was the onset of the credit card. I almost call it an assault on college students on campus. You'd walk down the first week of school, you'd walk down the quad, and there would be tables set up, or in the student union building, and they would be trying to throw free things at you, free t-shirt, free hats, free Frisbees, Nerf footballs, whatever it was, just to get you to sign up for a credit card. And it was, hey, you don't have to use it. Of course, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's just for emergencies. And I was, and I didn't get it that early on, but in the late 80s, when I took a couple of years off, but in the late 80s when I returned, I grabbed one just for those emergencies. And like any student, the emergencies are everybody has a different definition of what an emergency is. But I just had to be, I just wanted to be a professional musician, and I bought a professional grade keyboard and monitors, maxed out that card the day after I got it.
Wow.
And that's being generous. That could have been the same day. As soon as I got it, I knew exactly what I wanted to go do with it, even before I got it. And so I now had $2,000 maxed out credit card. A month later, I got my first credit card bill, and it said $50. And I thought, oh, this is great. I can have for $50, I get a professional grade keyboard. And I sent off the $50 a check. This was before the internet, really.
Right.
And I called my credit union about a week later and confirmed that the check had been cashed. And I thought, okay, I'll go buy some groceries now with that card. And I tried to buy like $20 worth of groceries, and it was declined. And I was so irate. I thought they cashed my check, and now they're going to try and not let me use it again. I called them, and they said, well, Mr. Christianson, college student hearing,
No kidding.
Mr. What did I do? And it feels a little condescending, and it was okay. Of that $50, about $45 of it was just for interest. I feel this is a learning moment. So my card was maxed out. $50 only brought down the limit, the available limit by about $5. I couldn't use it, and it was a terrible situation and hard lesson to learn. And I can't blame my parents. They didn't know that it was going to be something that that somebody my age was already going to be marketed for. So, I wasn't the greatest learner, quickest learner, because I got a gas card the next semester because there was a station right across the street, and I used that card for everything. I went grocery shopping at the convenience store. I got milk and bread and mostly those chocolate wax donuts. I don't know. Those were my addiction. And I took that card way above its limit within about 2 months. And within, I think, about 3 months, it was at about 60% over the limit because of all the extra fees that I was getting charged.
So you didn't learn your lesson very quickly.
No, that was it though. That was it. I didn't use those cards again, but they stuck around. And I had to, about a year later, 2 years later, I remember I was renting a room from one of my buddies, and I started getting these collection calls from the credit card companies. And I finally didn't want to hide anymore. And we set up a repayment plan, and I got out of that debt finally after about 2-3 years. But it was rough. And then I got married. Went off to grad school, and had my first son was born, and about 2 years later, my wife passed away after an illness, and financially, it was a tough situation there because there were, and this was 2 decades ago, but there were $30,000+ of hospital bills now.
Oh, really?
And I was unemployed. I'd been unemployed for 5 months, taking care of her, which in my mind was a blessing. And we had some great family support and community and church support. But, I remember seeing that $30,000 hospital bill. That did not include doctors and others. But fortunately, I had, we built a relationship with the social worker at the hospital and called her up and said, hey, what do you think? Is there any options for me? And she said, you are an ideal candidate for this. You've been unemployed for 6 months, and we were able to get that forgiven. It was still
really
very tough, stressful. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not just what you know, it's who you know. And because she was able to guide me through the program and help me and get to that point. So that was super helpful. And I went right into working a position. I got a job pretty soon after that, and remarried a few years later. Met a wonderful young lady, and we've have a wonderful family now, and 2 more kids on the way, or 2 more kids since then. Yeah, nice blended little mini Brady Bunch. But it's been a there you know there's been financial lessons all over the place, and I after start running my own business for a couple of years, I found this opportunity to be a financial educator. And it's funny, you go into, so many people go into a career that they struggled with early on, and that was, me in finance. I love what I do. I want to share with others the lessons I learned to help them avoid some of the frustrations that I had to go through. So
Now, those lessons that you learned, did you progress? Was each lesson like a stepping stone? Or did you find yourself having to do the same thing over and over again, which I think is quite common, is it not?
it can be. Yeah, I finally got I caught on. But I remember being a single dad. I had some student loan debt, and in earlier years, I would have just ignored it. But I had learned, by ignoring things, it just makes it worse. And so I took control. I made some phone calls. I looked into some alternatives, and I was able to refinance that. Uh, at It was practically, I mean, back in 2001, you could refinance a loan for, I think it was around 1%. It was so ridiculously low. But it was so it I learned it was less financial lessons than it was mindset shifts. And I
Okay.
think that's a huge thing that a lot of people have to get to that point is, you know what, if we can get over I hate money, I'm no good at money, it's beyond me, I'm not good enough, I just don't know what to do with it, to the point of, okay, if everybody else is trying to figure it out, and a lot of people have figured it out, I can too. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, yeah, ask around, ask a family member, ask somebody that you feel is you can trust, a good friend. When we can get over the idea that money is taboo, you can't talk about it, it's rude to talk about money. Actually, it's rude to keep all those lessons to yourself and sit back and say, let's see what you do. I just think
Yeah, I
that's
could see that.
so wrong on so many levels. But that's the way we think. We think, oh, I can't talk to anybody about money. It's embarrassing, as if everybody's perfect with money except me, right? The one thing I've learned in the 20 years of this, doing this, is that everybody has a money story, um, about difficult times they've gone through. Everybody.
Good point.
The person across the street that seems to have the perfect life, they own their own business, they drive, have their cars paid for, they struggled. There was a time when that person struggled so much they didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. It's that we all go through that. And when we can get over the idea that it's me against the world, we can open up to a complete new resource of support, and change our whole mindset that money is not the enemy, it's just a tool. And that was a big lesson I learned when I was tried to run a business early on, as a single dad. Is I I had to learn something about running a business, and I thought, okay, money finances is a big deal, because now the IRS is going to ask me double about personal income and about business income, and so I better get a handle on this. And when it becomes more of a tool, and not the adversary, or not the barrier, then you just realize, okay, if it's a tool, I better learn how to use it. There's a right way, there's a wrong
Mm-hmm.
way. You can build some pretty darn cool things, or you can, cut your finger off, or smash your thumb with a hammer, whatever it might be. You can get hurt using money, but
Mm-hmm.
you can also do a lot of good for yourself and for the world.
Now, a lot of people come to the place where they don't see any hope. They're in a situation where they can't see the forest for the trees per se.
Right.
And what we're going to talk about when we come back after a short break is how those people can be helped through your ebook, through your debt management program, and what you offer our audience today, because as you said, everybody has a money story. So before we go to break, is there anything else you want to address regarding what you're going to be talking about?
I think the idea of changing the mindset, looking at money as something that you can control. I think taking back control of your own finances is huge, and so that you're not feeling lost on an ocean of money.
Perfectly said. Take back control, because that is the scenario that most people are dealing with, correct? They feel
Uh,
they have lost control.
yeah.
So, on that note, we will be right back.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
Welcome back to Never Ever Give Up Hope. With me today is Todd Christianson in the area of finances, and this is where he has been sharing so far this morning. And finances, is there ever a time that it does not affect our lives, no matter we say how bad things are right now and how so many people are hurting? And I know that Todd is going to address that. But also, even when he, who came from an affluent family, you have to get things in order. Correct, Todd? You
Absolutely.
need to get, your life in order, your finances in order, and your future. So those are just some thoughts I've thrown out there. So take it away, Todd. Expound a little bit more on that, and then you're going to teach us how to avoid the unnecessary financial challenges which could devastate us.
You bet. Regardless of where somebody is in their life, money, it's going to affect us. The goal is that it not control us, but that we control it. And
Mhm.
that is one of the things that I really focus on, is helping people take back control of their finances so that it's working for them rather than they're just working for money.
Mhm.
And there are some of the keys that I emphasize when I'm working with somebody. A lot of people will have heard the number one rule of personal finance is to save. Pay yourself first. You got to do that. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do put something in at the beginning. One is, well, actually two things. One is, what do you want to do that's going to take money? You have to set kind of goals. If you don't set a goal, then anything you do with money is just math. Oh, I have to make this and I have to spend that. It's add, subtract, and it always ends up in either negative numbers or imaginary numbers, right? That's what a lot of us live in imaginary money space. But if we set goals, what do I want to do with money? I want to buy a home. Okay, well, how much is the down payment you're going to need? I want to start a business, or I want to retire early. Figure out the numbers. I want to fly to Europe. I want to go to Australia. I want to visit Japan. Whatever it might be. Write it down. Set a goal. Figure out what is it going to cost and how am I going to get there. So the goal is if you don't have that, you don't have direction, and then money is going to always be pulling you from the wrong direction. And then number two, before I get to savings, is generosity first. It's a rule that I believe in, not just because it sounds nice and warm and fuzzy, but I believe that there's a financial aspect to it that helps people who are generous be better with their money that they have left over after being generous. So financial generosity first, whether that is giving to a church, a charity, a school, whatever it might be. What it does is it keeps us grounded. It makes us realize, look, if I'm giving to a homeless shelter, it reminds me, there are people out there that don't have a roof over their head. And where am I at? I'm doing better. I'm doing okay. I got a roof over my head. Yeah, things seem tight. Things are tough. This happens. That broke down. Yada yada yada. But it helps us realize that no matter how bad it is, there's probably somebody else that could use help more than I do. And then with the understanding that my needs are met because somebody else's needs aren't, I recognize, look, a need is really shelter, food on the table, some clothing. And then you start talking about the pseudo needs, like transportation and communication, that we feel are needs, not really, they feel like needs, although we can physically survive without them. We start making better choices on our priorities. We start prioritizing, okay, take care of the needs first, and then we can start looking at what's left and what's most important. So goals, and then generosity first, and then pay yourself first. If we all paid ourselves first, and people will ask me, what does that mean? It simply is put money into your savings before you do anything else. And people, yeah, I mean, people will say, well, I can't afford to do that because all my money goes to bills, as if to say that bills are the same thing as needs. When we start paying ourselves first, we start realizing that not everything we can obligate ourselves to is a need. Just because you sign up for a subscription to a streaming video service doesn't mean that that's a need. And if we put money out, get it out of our spending account, human nature says that we will adjust to what's left. It's just too many people say, well, whatever I have left over at the end of the month, I'll put that into savings. And guess how much they have left over at the end of the month? There's always more month left over at the end of the money in that situation. Whereas if you put money into savings first, as soon as you get it in a paycheck or have it directly deposited in savings, then when we're constantly looking at how much more do I have to spend, we realize, okay, I can't go out to eat 3 times or 5 times a week. And we start adjusting our lifestyle to what's left in our account. Sometimes we don't like that. I don't want to adjust my lifestyle. Well, the reality is you adjust your lifestyle now slightly, or you will be forced to adjust your lifestyle significantly later when you start paying interest on credit cards and other debts that you are currently using to fund that lifestyle. So it's always better to make that choice early. So those are kind of the first few things that we need to do to get our financial lives in order, and literally in order. That's the order to go through. And then I tell people, look, why do we constantly make ourselves face hard decisions, financial decisions? How much am I going to save this month? How much am I going to spend on this? How much am I going to spend on that? Why not just automate as much as we can of our finances? There's so many automatic tools out there, automation tools, that money can just go to where it needs to go, all of our different bills. We can put money into certain different accounts that are for specific purposes, like groceries has its own account, or travel has its own account. And so that every month, the only real decision we have to make after we do all the setting up, we set everything up once, but every month after month, the only decision we make is, okay, I've got fun money I can spend. How am I going to spend it? Because money should not be stressful. It is. I understand it. I mean, there are a lot of situations where if you don't have enough to cover your own survival needs, it's very stressful.
That was my question. How do you talk to someone in that position, right? Especially now when the cost of food has risen. Yeah. I understand. I can't remember the numbers, but it's risen substantially.
Right.
At the grocery store. And how do people adjust to that if there is no money even before they start the month?
It's an eye opener in many cases.
Okay.
When 80% of, and this has been pretty steady since I started tracking it back in the early 2000s when I started this job. About 60 to 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Meaning every dollar comes in, every dollar goes out before the next paycheck. And so when something like inflation or COVID hits, it can have a really devastating effect on finances. The problem is we just, as I alluded to earlier, we adjust our lifestyle to whatever money we have, and we start to obligate ourselves to monthly payments, like not just like video streaming. Everybody, we
Mhm.
somehow, I haven't looked for about 2 years. Somehow that's like 60, 70, 80%, and maybe not quite 80% anymore. 60, 70% of households in this country still pay for live TV. And now they've added onto that 3 or 4 different streaming services. And so they have all these different just entertainment fees that come in, bills that come in every month. And then we say, oh, the groceries are the grocery prices have gone up. Now what do I do? Let's look at where your money's going. So it's all going to bills. Okay, are those bills priority over food?
Right.
And that's, I mean, it seems like it shouldn't be that tough of a conversation, but it is because of and I can't remember the name of the law, but once we habituate ourselves to a certain lifestyle, it's so difficult to move to lower any kind of
Exactly. Yes.
lifestyle.
Yes.
And so that's where we have to talk about, okay, let's revisit priorities. Which are the most important, and make sure that if your priorities are met, you can be quite satisfied in life. There's studies after study over the last few years have been coming out about, can money buy you happiness? It actually, there's a correlation that up to a certain amount, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood, just a little above the average median area income, whatever everybody else in your area is making. If you're making just a little more than them, up to that point, it makes you happier. If you're anywhere, you get more money. If you're 50% of the area median income and you make more money, you're going to be happier. And you make more money, you're going to be happier. And each year you're making more money. But if once you hit that just a little above the area median income, and you start making making more money, it does not bring you any more joy or much more satisfaction. A little more stability, but you don't find, it doesn't increase your sense of happiness.
So is this what you're talking about when you mentioned your debt management program? Like, do you lay this out through coaching or through your website or through your book? Tell us about that. Okay.
Yes, all of the above. So debt management is a third-party program to help people who need that accountability with a third party to help them pay off their debts. I work with people. I try to get them to use a first party, do-it-yourself kind of repayment plan. Set a plan, a spending plan or a budget, and start putting extra money toward your debts. You make minimum payments to every single debt except one, and you focus on one. And which one you focus on depends on your goals. A lot of people talk about this, what's called the snowball. Have you ever heard of the snowball?
No.
Carol? Snowball is where you make minimum payments to everything except the smallest balance, and you make the extra payments to that, and you pay it off quickly. And the idea is, hey, I just paid one off. Now I have a little more motivation to continue.
Okay.
And so they say, okay, then snowball to the next one. Move that payment that you were just paying to that first place. Now
that makes sense.
Focus on the next smallest one and pay that one off. And that's a great way to get started. I totally agree with that. I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to stick with that after you pay off one or two accounts and you have the motivation to move forward. Move to one of two other options, what's called the avalanche, which is to pay your focus on the highest interest rate first, because you're going to save yourself time and money. You're going to get out of debt sooner. You're going to pay less interest over time. It may not be a lot, but it might save you only 1 or 2 months. But if your monthly bills, your debt bills are $400, $500, 1 or 2 months could be over $1,000. So the avalanche, that helps you save money and time. But if your goal is to maybe buy a home in the next year or so, and you're trying to rebuild your credit, then I termed a few years ago, I termed it the landslide. You focus on the newest account that you've opened, because activity on newer accounts will affect your credit score more than activity on older accounts. So The sooner you can pay off new accounts, the faster it'll build or rebuild your credit in advance of buying a home, for example, so that you can get better mortgage rates.
And how does somebody avoid the temptation? Let's say they paid off a credit card and now that money is sitting there available.
Yes.
Should they cut that credit card? How do they avoid the temptation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This study I remember seeing back in the 2000s. I think it may not have been, but I for some reason I think it was an American Express study, showed that if you pay off credit cards with a credit card debt with another credit card or with a home equity line of credit, a balance transfer of some sort, within a year or so, 70% of consumers not only have that balance that was transferred, but they've run up those old credit cards back to their original balances. And so it is a real temptation, a real issue. I'm just going to use it for this one thing. And pretty soon we're using it just the way we used to, and now we have double the debt.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, cut it up. I don't have a problem with that. If you close the account, it may negatively affect your credit, but I'm not one to say build credit for credit's sake. If your goal is to pay off debt, then close out those other accounts. Your credit may go down a bit, but as you make monthly payments on time and pay down your debts, it's gonna rebound. So yeah, cut up the debts, cut up the cards, get rid of them, take them off your online accounts, your Amazon account, and other places that you just have to click to buy something that can make. Here, this is kind of goes contrary to the way we think about life, but I say make money, your access to money, as inconvenient as possible.
That's good.
It really, because if all you have to do is click a button to buy something, you're going to buy more. Great for a business if you're a business owner, but for consumers, make it take the account, the credit card off of that auto purchase option, where all they have to one click. Get a bank or credit union for savings that is not tied to where you have your checking account, so that and don't tie them. Don't get an ATM card. Don't tie them together so you can electronically transfer back and forth. I have when I was living in Boise, I found one they only had one branch in the valley, and they didn't have a drive-through, and it didn't have evening or weekend hours. And so to go get money, I could send it there. I would send it automatically or as through bill pay, but to withdraw it, I literally had to go drive there during the day, take a little time off work. I had to get out of my car. This is so inconvenient. I had to walk I think I paced it off. It was 100 yards into the credit union and withdraw the money. And so I left it there. I was using it at the time for saving money to buy Christmas gifts and birthday gifts for my wife, because otherwise she sees where all the money goes. I wanted to have some sort of surprise there. So make it inconvenient to access your money or to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then so debt management is a third-party program where if you've tried the snowball or the landslide or the avalanche and it's not working, a third-party consumer credit counseling agency like ours, we work with the creditors to lower interest rates, typically down in the single digits, 2%, 5%, 8%. You make one monthly payment. So you have all these credit cards, collection accounts, medical debts, payday loans, whatever they might be. We just don't work with home loans or car loans. And you make one payment to the credit counseling agency, and we then disperse it to all your creditors until they're paid off. And it's typically 3 to 5 years. Can't go past 5 years, but it's a 3 to 5 year program typically. No prepayment penalty. There are some fees, but they're capped by every state.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very reasonable, so that even with those fees, your monthly payment is typically, because of the lower interest rates, much less than what you're dealing with now. So especially anybody who's dealing with credit card interests in the upper teens or 20%, I've seen 30. I've seen one credit card that had a default or a penalty rate in the 60%
Oh my word.
APR rate. Yeah, right. This sort of a program can really be a lifesaver to help them help the consumer get out of debt. And during those 3 to 5 years, those accounts are closed, so they can't use them anymore. And there's kind of a forced discipline to live without credit while they're on the program, so that when they're off, recidivism rate can be much lower.
Discipline can be a real negative word to a lot of people, right?
Self-discipline. Yeah, if you nobody wants to be disciplined by anybody else, but self-discipline is crucial to financial stability and wealth. I have one presentation that I do on Who Wants to Live Like a Millionaire, it's called. And it's a lot of myth busting, because we think of millionaire lifestyle. It's great for teenagers and young adults especially, but even older adults. But we think of millionaire lifestyle, we think of the cars and the homes and the travel. And the reality is that most millionaires, 98% of millionaires, that's not what their lifestyle looks like. There is the 1% that we see on TV, the actors and the athletes and the musicians, but they get paid to be seen, because if they're not seen, they don't sell.
Good point.
But they make up less than, I think it's about 2% of 1%, 2 1,000th,
right,
or 2 10,000th. Everybody else, you do have the doctors and the attorneys and the business owners. But a great book came out back in the late 90s called Millionaire Next Door. And it really shed light on what the lifestyle of most millionaires are like. And it was followed up. The daughter of the professor, one of the professors that published that, followed that up just a few years ago with The Next Millionaire Next Door, and confirmed that it wasn't just something of the late 90s and the tech bubble back then, but most millionaires you wouldn't notice by their lifestyle.
Well, a lot of them do not want to be noticed either.
Yeah. Your neighbor driving an old, neighbor driving an old truck, beat up truck to work every day, may have a much higher net worth than the other neighbor on the other side driving a brand new luxury vehicle.
Exactly.
So
good point. And what is the name of your book?
My book that I published in 2014 is called Everyday Money for Everyday People. I based it on a lot of the feedback or a lot of the stories that I was hearing in some of these in the classes that I was doing for those first 10 years. And I kept thinking, oh, that's a great story, or that's a great tip. Somebody ought to write a book. And I quickly realized, they're sharing those with me. I better honor that and share that information. So it's Everyday Money for Everyday People. And followed up a few years later, it's called 50 Plus on Fire. The FIRE movement stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And it's all about a lot of people like the idea of trying to retire early, live on passive income. And it's tended to be a very much younger movement. The 20-something, 30-something they want to retire by the time they're 40. A lot of them are in professions that they don't like their jobs, maybe tech industry too, and they just get tired of their jobs. So they want to just make enough money that they can invest and then retire and either not necessarily always travel, but travel, but also pursue other things that they love, like doing some volunteer work or having their own small business, doing a blog, doing a podcast, whatever it might be.
Right.
But that's what, and I wrote one for people who are in their 50s and who still want to try and retire early.
And these are all available on your website and on Amazon?
Yes, on Amazon. Yep.
Now, is there anything in summary that you would like to say to the audience?
Just keep going. I love the name of the podcast, Never Ever Give Up. We want to just sometimes give up with finances. Oh, it's so difficult. Exactly. I'll never make it. I'm never going to get out of all this debt. If you've tried it on your own, don't give up. There are other options. There are third parties. Even bankruptcy, it's there for a reason. I'm not a fan of bankruptcy. Nobody is. Even people that
right.
I've counseled a lot of people going through bankruptcy. And of the thousands of people that are doing that, none of them say, "Oh, so glad I'm going through bankruptcy." But
Really,
they will say, "You know what? This was my last option," and it's there for a somewhat, not completely, but somewhat of a fresh start. And within 5-10 years, studies show that most people can catch back up to their cohort economically. So never give up. There's always options. Boy, especially, reach out to your local nonprofit credit counseling agency. I love the university extension offices. Pretty much every county around the country has access to one, and a lot of free resources. Just take advantage of them. And
and be generous. You said in the beginning too, correct?
Yes. Stay grounded.
Way to give.
Yeah, stay grounded at every income level. You can, even if you don't have money to give, you can always give support.
Mm-hmm.
You can always give time, ideas. When we give, it attracts people, and we build a powerful network that supports us in our own goals.
Well, this has been very enlightening, and I'm sure that those who are listening will want to listen twice and to go to your website and to connect with you, because this is a subject that bears repeating over and over and over and over, as I'm sure you are fully aware of being what you've been doing all these years. But people are always looking for ways, if they are open to receiving the information that you have available to them, they're looking for ways to improve in this area.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to be ridden with debt.
Right. And I do invite anybody, feel free, please reach out to me. I tell people all the time, use me, you can't abuse me. That's what we're here for.
That's right.
It's I'm not.
You've been there, done that, right?
Been there, done that. Is absolutely right.
All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate what you have shared with us today, and I appreciate you being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.